Good afternoon, everyone. Forgive the squinting and forgive any shine that I may be giving to the room. Thank you to Publishing Perspectives for letting this next session happen. I see it as a nice juxtaposition to the session that Porter moderated just now. They're kind of maybe two extreme ends of the scale. So the last session was very much about considerations around audio as we currently know it, or maybe smaller language markets, independent publishers starting out for the first time. And now we're going to put some rocket fuel under it and talk about the complete opposite end of the scale of the audio world more generally, which is fair to say isn't the mainstream yet, but there's certainly a plethora of amazing examples of this second breed of audio. At the end, because a lot of what we're going to talk about here is going to rely on you a lot to use your imaginations, because there's not a lot to listen to when we're talking about audio at this fair, the great irony. So at the end, there will be two enormous QR codes on here, and I encourage you all to download them and go and listen to what it is we're going to try and describe and get you excited by. So my name's Nathan. I'm from Beat Technology. I talk far too much around audio on all things, but I do have the pleasure of curating things every now and then. So I've got two fantastic guests to guide you through this topic with me today. To my immediate right, we have Richard Addis from Dolby, and a little further to my right, Kelly Garner from Treefort in LA. So one of the things when we were talking about this that we've wrestled with is even to name this thing we're trying to talk about to you. We've gone through premium audio, super audio, audio 2.0, hardback audio, all these other, basically it's all audio that is beyond a straight single voice read. So this could be fully scored soundtracks, some amazing sound design, a multicast recording, or fully supported by Dolby Atmos. So that's what we're going to get into. And there's some amazing stuff out there that we'll encourage you to listen to. So, Rich, what are you going to bring to the table? Give us a little bit of your background, not a full bio, but a little bit of your background and where we're going to stitch you into this conversation.
Sure. My name is Richard Addis. I work as music and podcast and post-production partnerships out of Dolby in the UK. So it's my job to help people get started comfortably and confidently using Dolby's tools and technologies. So Dolby Atmos is a 3D immersive audio technology. You might be familiar with it in the film and television space. We launched about 4 years ago with music, and more recently with audiobooks and audio dramas, fantastic partnerships with people like Audible, Wondery, Deutsche Radio, among others. And Dolby's tools and technologies, specifically around Dolby Atmos and immersive audio, are kind of bringing a new dimension to what's possible with immersive storytelling. So we're very used to having things which are flat and two-dimensional. Dolby Atmos is about bringing three-dimensionality to the experience. So having things which can happen around the listener, in the rear, behind people, above people's heads. And I think as soon as we start talking about surround sound and immersive audio in that sense, people start switching off and thinking, oh, this isn't for me, or who's actually going to listen to this? But I think that's one of the big misconceptions around Dolby Atmos and immersive audio in general, is that what it's about is more about bringing the best possible quality of experience to the audience wherever they might be listening to that piece of content. So it can work on headphones or it can work in home studios, everything across that continuum.
Car.
And the car, yeah, we can get into all the different...
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
And then Kelly, whilst peppering this with a bunch of examples from your, like, the amazing crazy stuff you make, does include Dolby Works as well, but all the other side of things. Just give us a feeling for what it is you create, because these are, I don't know what you call them, but like super productions. And I want to caveat this with, it's not, what we're talking about today isn't with an expectation that every publisher in the land is going to walk away and suddenly make super audio, whatever we're calling this thing. But it's to be aware of what the next level of audiobook consumption might be. and what the consumer might demand. And this guy's making a load of it already. So,
thank you, Nathan. Hard book audio, I don't see sticking.
that one, we killed that one quickly.
That was his idea. My name's Kelly. It's really great to be here. Thank you for coming. This topic is one that really excites me and is what really drives everything that we do at Treefort Media. So we're based in Los Angeles. My background is television mainly. Up until about 9 years ago, I had a bit of a creative crisis and realized the most creative stuff is actually happening in audio. Homecoming at that time came out, the studio I was working for at NBC Universal. We optioned it and turned it into a TV show on Prime. And that just really opened up my brain on sort of what's possible. When I was a kid, I grew up listening to radio dramas, you know, very BBC stuff on cassette tapes, pretty much the opposite of Dolby Atmos. And so I think, though, that that's a really good example of even with sort of crap quality, if there's performance and the story is good, you know, the sort of theater of the mind kicks in, which is exactly what happens when you experience a great book. So we've been really fortunate at Treefort to do a lot of immersive audio and work with Dolby. We've done about, I don't know, 15 sort of highly produced multicast series. One of our biggest ones right now is called Moriarty. It's a twist in the Sherlock Holmes universe. We're in season 3 right now. Last season we got to work with Dame Helen Mirren on that, which was really just a career highlight. And the idea that we can bring in talent like that to bring these stories alive on certain projects. Obviously, this isn't everything, but it's just been a real sort of career pinnacle to be able to have these tools with Dolby, have access to great material. That's obviously the foundation of everything. But being able to kind of extend the creative palette using Dolby Atmos, I think as a creator is one of the most exciting things, because suddenly you're thinking about location, and it's not just hearing things equally on both sides. Suddenly you've got 360 degrees, 180, you know, just a full space that you can suddenly imagine being over the shoulder of someone or hearing someone from the other side of the room. And these are not, I think the most effective really is usually the most simple use of Dolby, where it's not hitting you over the head, but it's subtle and it's kind of activating things that might not be on the front burner for you, but draw you deeper into the story.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think immersive audio, surround sound technologies, people think of the Hollywood blockbusters, the kind of the Marvel films, the DC films, things with lots of action, kind of blockbuster audio. But I think you're absolutely right. Some of the most subtle use cases can be the most effective. Like you're trying to transport your audience and your listener into a scene, whether they're part of the scene or they're a kind of external observer to a scene. You're trying to place them into that environment. And really simple, subtle things like use of room tones and reverbs. And I spent an earlier part of my career working in documentaries and natural history, and like the sound of a rainforest canopy. That's one audio file that you can add, and it brings a huge amount of depth and richness to a scene, which you can really benefit from.
So I like a comment you've made here. We've talked about the creative reasons, right? And you're both creators in slightly different but related fields, right? And all publishers, they're gatekeepers and curators, but they're also creators or working with creative people. But there has to be a fine balance between that, like wanting to make something and having the ideas and the tools to make it, versus as a publisher, the commercial reality of making it, right? So I'm not going to disclose any numbers you've ever told me, but you can work at ultra high end. I imagine a lot of the audience will be like, this sounds exciting. Hopefully you find it exciting. But like, how is this within reach to us? So can we talk around that? Because I think a key takeaway from any talk is like, what's tangible for the room to kind of walk away with some of these things? And one, you've touched on one there already, as in with the Dolby side of things, it doesn't have to be this. I like the comment about subtlety, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. And I think on the surface, for production folks or publishers who haven't really dived into the fullness of Atmos, it can seem like, it adds multiple zeros to your budget. But the fact is, it doesn't have to. And I'm certainly not here to, hype Dolby. I think spatial audio and 3D audio, this is all kind of fertile ground. But, Atmos has been particularly effective for us. And to give you an example, at the lower end of the spectrum, we're always trying to push things and be experimental. And our company, Treefort, we made a deal with the Orson Welles estate last year. I heard a little in the last panel about AI stuff. I have some hot takes if anyone really wants to hear them. But for now, I'll keep it really simple in that we made a deal with Orson Welles estate. We licensed use of his voice. We're able to recreate a really incredible version of it. And we've been producing Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, as an audiobook. Now, this is not with a publisher in mind necessarily, and this is not an easy task, but the Dolby of it all, I think, just adds something really rich and subtle to an audiobook, because we're not doing a full kind of multicast production with this. In this case, Orson Welles' voice is quite powerful and resonant, and we wouldn't want to take anything away from that. But as far as production, it's actually taking a lot longer to do, because we also have someone performing the voice, and then we're swapping it out using, speech-to-speech technology. So it's actually taking quite a bit longer than us just recording the normal way. But the way in which we're using Atmos, I think, is really subtle. It's not hitting you over the head, but it's sort of elevating the audiobook in an unexpected way. And hopefully it's giving listeners a little bit of that extra kind of curiosity factor of, what did this add to this really classic tale?
Yeah, I think, obviously, if you're going from a single voice narration audiobook to then think about audio drama, there's layers of complexity there straight away with a multi-voice cast and sound design and potentially commissioned original score. So there are complexities which are added upon that. But if you're thinking, and this question is coming around to cost, really, I think, if you look at the uplift between going from a single voice to a multicast stereo production, and then a multicast stereo audiobook production up to Dolby Atmos, it's so context dependent, which sounds like a cop-out. But it really is. I think we try and steer people towards thinking about time rather than cost. So if you're going to add time to your budget, then it tends to be the sound edit part of the process, sound design, effects editing, because you've got a bigger three-dimensional space to fill. There's a lot of places to hide when you're working with stereo. You can kind of cover gaps with room tones where there's no music, or you can cover gaps with music where there's no room tone, for example. But when you've got the full 3D environment, you need to put more audio onto that timeline to then be able to mix into the environment. But I think the way to think about this is this kind of multi-tiered approach. I mean, I think in physical publishing, it's very used to having the hardback and then the paperback and then the folio version with the gold print and the embossed fabric-bound covers. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect that the audiences are willing to have multi-layered, multi-tiered approach to their audiobook consumption. So people will seek out premium quality versions, or maybe it's just something where they're very familiar with that title already, but they don't want to go back and listen to the same voice for the 10th time, and they're ready to engage with it in a new way. So yeah, bringing something to the table which is new, which is different, which is exciting, and is going to bring existing IP to new and younger audiences in particular, I think is a real benefit to this.
And I want to come back to this point about younger audiences and what you guys already know about the listenership for these type of recordings already. But on that point there about two-tier or multi-tier platforms, I think we're starting to see it. You used the analogy from print world and books. So this industry is very, very au fait with that concept already. But as digital consumers that we all are, even though we love the paper, movies, there's standard, there's HD, there's ultra HD already. Music, there's there's digital platforms of multiple with multiple tiers, physical with multiple tiers. So it's kind of normal, which is where there was kind of the catalyst for thinking about this kind of conversation today, that these bigger premium level audio experiences do already exist. They're not quite the mainstream yet, but it's more of a prompt to think about where it could go. But the challenge is, Kelly, did you want to jump in?
No, I was just going to agree with you on the sort of cinematic audio of it all, because I think, not every audiobook needs to have this kind of treatment. Obviously, just like every book out there doesn't need a huge, big Hollywood movie adaptation. But for the right titles, it really is the right thing, because it not only kind of differentiates itself from all of these other audio titles, but I think in a time of volume, like right now we're in a record, and it's great. We've never had more audiobooks and never had more publishers and creators. And I think now with AI and really realistic human voice, we're going to be flooded with this stuff, whether we like it or not, or realize it. And so I think it's really important that all of us are thinking about ways that we can just elevate the storytelling through this cinematic audio that is different. It's not an audiobook that you're listening to in the car with the windows open and you can make out the voice but nothing else. This is almost like a different way to experience that is more intimate, is more directed, and it's more personal, because I think you're really tapping into all of those subtle kind of sound things that are happening in your brain. That is just a different experience, whether it's something you recognize while listening or not.
Some really good points. I love the fact, like, spot the person from LA driving with the car, windows down, did you say? I was like...
I mean, it's pretty smoggy, so most of the time you want to keep the windows up.
But to address one small elephant in the room, again, around tangibility, how do we help? What can we say to publishers to help this not only be the domain of the platforms themselves? Because I think it's fair to say, Rich, you currently have a relatively narrow outlet of platforms that support Dolby.
Yeah.
And Kelly, in terms of the stuff you create, affordability-wise, primarily the realm of platforms. Is that fair?
I think, yeah. I mean, I feel like with audiobooks and podcasts as a kind of umbrella term, we're about 3 or 4 years behind where we're at with the music industry with Dolby Atmos, and it takes time to launch services. I think up until now, it's been the realm of commissioned content. You're absolutely right on both Audible and Wondery in particular. But Storytel have recently announced the launch and support of Dolby Atmos. That's going to be imminent in the autumn. And there we have a platform and a service which will accept submissions from third-party publishers for the first time, and that's been the kind of missing link here. I think
that's a big leap, right?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a lot of conversations with publishers, and they're kind of interested, but maybe they want that avenue to be able to distribute their own IP without entering into a kind of originals agreement. And yeah, we now have the first of hopefully many outlets there that will help accelerate this the growth and interest.
I would just add to that I think there's actually quite a vibrant scene of independent producers and creators making this kind of content. It's just being distributed in a different way. I think there's more kind of subscription and membership and Patreon stuff that supports some of these things. And the costs, if you're not working with, A-level talent, there's plenty of incredible talent that, is willing to work at scale and willing to just be part of something different and cool. And one of the things that I think is really accessible about this is, I mentioned Helen Mirren before, she was in 8 episodes, but we only needed to record with her for less than, 7 or 8 hours. And if we were doing 8 episodes of TV, you're asking someone to go away for 3 months, and it's just a whole different kind of scale. So, for independent folks out there, there are really incredible radio dramas and cinematic audio series being made. I think it's just, there's kind of a disconnect between people being able to discover and find it. They're just very kind of small pocket communities, but they're very vibrant and rich.
And on people, I think it was you referenced younger listeners. Is there any evidence to suggest, just from your own experiences, that these type of audio recordings are finding a home with a different type of listener to, let's call it, a standard audiobook?
I mean, I think the short answer is yes, but it depends on the age. I think, it's still a challenge to get younger folks, younger kids to, take multiple hours to listen to one thing. But on the flip side of that, kids also love repetition. So if you find the right thing, they're going to listen to it over and over and over and over again. Anecdotally, with my own teenagers, I would say that the more interactive and immersive something is, the more they're into it. But, it's a fickle crowd. But, it definitely skews on the younger side for sure. There's, a lot of folks who want their audiobook, with no other sounds, and that's the way it's been, and they like it. And that's totally fine, too. That's kind of what's great, is there's such a huge variety in this world.
Yeah, I think that's what the point that it comes back to is. It's like giving the audience the choice of what they want to consume. It might be the single voice narrator that they've known and loved, or it might be that they're at a point in time where they're willing to try something new. So specifically the question around the younger audiences, I don't have any specific data points on that, but in general, I think we've heard it in a couple of the panels today that younger audiences tend to be more willing to try new things.
I've got this thought as well on this two-tier concept, or multi-tier, whatever it might be, that if that predominantly means that platform X is going to charge a little bit more for that content, then of course there's more money in the pot for the creator to have a slightly different business model in terms of what they're going to demand from the platforms for these different types of content too. We haven't got long left. There is a microphone if anyone has questions, but I can't see anyone if I'm honest. Okay, hi.
Hello. The games industry, how do you interact with that?
Is that a question for
either of you?
Games industry? I mean, very, very different worlds to publishing and audiobooks. I mean, it's a complex answer, so I wouldn't want to kind of eat up time here for other questions. But yeah, Dolby Atmos is available on the major gaming platforms. The way that it's utilized is slightly differently. It's a way to translate something which exists in a 3D world into a playback environment that's also 3D, without the games companies and platforms needing to invent their own proprietary technologies. So we do quite a bit with the gaming industry. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. There's a lady there in the middle.
Hi, thank you. Would like to ask, please, about children's books, audio children's books. Would you think they are successful? Do you think they have future? We just won an award for the best children's books in the Middle East, and it's the first award for an audiobook. And we were very happy in the production, but we enjoyed it. Many people enjoyed it. But I don't know how successful it would be to turn all the books to audiobooks.
Do you guys mind if I...
Do you think the picture element, the visual will...
I think the true answer to that question is probably very dependent on the market you're selling the books in and the platforms that are available there. So if you're in a market that is predominantly has all-you-can-eat subscription models, there's a repeat listening ability, and kids like to read things over and over and listen over and over. And I think there is more of an environment that allows them to, for the next book in the series to be read and discovered super easily. And that isn't so possible on other like credit-based models or via a la carte. So I think that's the true answer, but absolutely there's a huge creative space in children's audio. And Kelly, I mean, you touched upon it there as well.
I was just going to add that, you know, if the alternative is them not reading and not reading an actual book and being on a screen, then it's a great thing for a kid to be able to listen to an audiobook. And I think while it might not be massive yet, it's going to be, absolutely. And it's the kind of IP that's evergreen. So I say keep making them. And congratulations, by the way.
I didn't say that, see. I'm the English guy. I meant to have like built-in gentlemanliness.
I stole your line.
I've got a big red flashing light in front of me, so I'm really sorry. We're going to draw it to a close there. Thank you all for listening. We're going to be hanging around a little bit if there are any more questions. And just keep an eye on the space. That's all I'm going to encourage you to do. Katie, can you put up the QR codes, please? And then really, seriously, so you can even start to imagine this stuff, there's a selection of Dolby Atmos examples and a selection from Kelly's wonderful catalog as well. Seriously, go away, listen, and have fun, and then tell everyone what's happening next. Thank you, everyone.